Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of our Language Completeness and Consistency series. And we're going to start on item 2 here because we're still waiting for some people for item 1. Okay, one argument form of monitor, a really useful thing. So
Right.
this is basically monitor of map and things like that, right?
Correct.
Let's take a look here. Oh, that's really useful. Super, super duper useful. I'm not sure I totally like the display there, but this is super useful. Okay, so now what's the issue with this?
So I mean, there's one real issue and one just review of the of the design.
Okay, so I have a question. How deep does it go? So I assume that the monitor only looks at the function it is directly wrapped around. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's type wrapping point.
That's the type wrapping section, and that was the original spec you gave us, and that's what we've implemented. So, but
I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think this is fine. This is absolutely
just wanted to double check.
Yeah, I think that's a-okay. I think that's the only reasonable way. In other words, monitor is kind of like an adverb of the action. It's kind of like do it. I mean, the alternative, which I don't like as much, is a wrapper monitored. In other words, something like this, where we say, monitored table, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and conceivably that's an alternative form that we could have. But I like putting the monitor around there, just like we put an echo around there. I like it much better.
Okay.
I mean, like, in other words, if we put an echo around this whole thing, well, no, it's a different thing because the return value is sort of the global thing for all of it. Okay, next up, what are the issues here?
So the main issue is what to do. So
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. The main issue is what?
What to do in the failure case. So normally a monitor just evaporates away. But if we did that in the error case, then we would evaluate the input twice and, get all the side effects twice and doubled messages. So not evaporate away. And another possibility is...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You kept cutting out here. So it says again.
So one possibility is to return
really
unevaluated completely with, the monitor still stuck there, or to return a failure object. And we've implemented both for you to sort of...
Okay, what is the cause of the failure? What's the cause of a failure?
So in this case, you gave invalid... right, you gave invalid limits, right? You gave list times G as the iterator, and right, table would not...
I see, so table barfed.
Right. Gave an invalid table.
Well, what does the table itself return? It returns unevaluated, right?
Correct.
So I think the monitor should just return around it and it's still unevaluated.
Yeah, I think that, sorry, you were cutting out a bit. The thing is that typically monitor adds something on the side and then just runs the code as you give it. Yeah. So in this case, you would just give the unevaluated table. But in this case, we need to do some code transformation to actually do the monitoring. So this is like a different return. Like if you monitor with 2 arguments, you would get an evaluated table, not an evaluated monitor. But with the automatic one, we cannot return an evaluated table because we've modified that. And returning table.
I don't understand why. I don't understand. Mm-hmm. You've modified the code, but the code fails. You determine that the table didn't manage to tabulate itself, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay, you've presumably stored what the code was before you started doing it.
Yeah, and you see that is there. Is that table code one?
Right, but if we did that, then it would evaluate then a second time outside the monitor. So you'd get doubled messages, doubled side effects. And if we're
I'm
okay
sorry,
with that,
why?
Because we didn't really evaluate table. We evaluate the modified version with the progress monitoring. So that expression was never flagged as evaluated.
Well, it's not just that, right? It's that so we try to evaluate the thing, and then we're like, oh, we're in trouble. We can't do this. And if we then return the table, right, then the function has returned, right, has evaluated non-trivially. So infinite evaluation takes over. And
well, okay. So the statement Giulio made, namely, the table that is returned here is not flagged as having been evaluated because it has been reconstituted. Therefore, it will be evaluated again. Right? I mean, if monitor in this situation didn't evaluate its argument for some reason, yeah, that's a mess. Okay, hold on. Let me think about this for a second. I mean, the situation is something has gone very wrong. And most of the time, this is going to be code where you're just going to rerun the code. The return value of the code is largely irrelevant. See, I'm worried about okay. I mean, I think if people are using the confirming close framework and things like that properly, then the generation of a failure object is not so terrible. In other words, do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is this isn't a thing which is going to evaluate it to itself and treat it as an object. This is very much a piece of code. And the piece of code, you don't usually look at the return value of the code. Am I making sense?
I'm sorry, at least for me, you cut in and out a bit, so I didn't quite get.
Could you maybe dial in your audio some other so that we can?
I can try. Okay.
And I assume somebody communicated with sysadmin that there's some problem, right? Did somebody do that, please? Hello?
I can do that because I can complain for myself too.
Okay. Do we have a project manager here? Who is it?
Yes. Addison.
So, okay. So why doesn't Jeremy go and make the complaint just so we make sure somebody knows this is a problem? Okay. All right. So did you understand what I said? Do I have to repeat what I said?
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting.
What are you doing?
Followed by pound.
Hey. Mute that. Okay.
No, man, I see your point, Stephen. Like we have been pushing failure a lot with the whole confirm and close system.
Yes,
so
but
I think people are now more comfortable with failure.
Right, but the point that I'm making, if this is going to be used, if monitor is going to be used primarily in code, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could also interactively do / monitor or like around something like you do input form or something like that in some interactive way.
I don't like this very much.
Right. This is so I was switching to phone audio to hopefully improve my situation, but obviously I did hear some segment of
the sound sounds terrible. You might want to use some microphone configuration that's different, but at least we can hear you.
Okay. So
you sound like you're in a cave.
Okay. I will try to find a different headset, but in a minute.
I don't think your headset is connected. I think you're not going through your headset. Sounds like the speakerphone. Just make sure the headset is actually being used.
Okay.
No, come on, please.
I'm just saying that this is where we got stuck. We don't like this.
Could you try to get your audio so that we can actually hear you properly?
How's this? No?
Yeah, at least low noise. It's very quiet, but it's low noise.
Okay. Is there some?
No, we can hear you. I mean, you speak loudly, so it's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, you got stuck here because, so what would we like it to do? Okay. So let's imagine, what other examples are there? Let's try something here. So let's say it's table WZ. Okay, that's going to give an error, right? So now we say / input form. Well, / I don't know what with some other form, / framed. Okay, I mean,
Right.
that's the best thing, is that it just returns unevaluated with the monitor wrapped around it. So, and the issue is that because this is code, I mean, this may need internal code that just, tags it somehow so that this doesn't fail again. You see what I'm saying? I think this is the desirable outcome.
Okay.
And in terms of testing this out, we could test it out with double error messages and things like that if necessary. But I mean, the other possibility, I mean, there is a case, isn't there, where we wrap a hold when something went horribly wrong.
I think the only example I can think of is the recursion limit, iteration limit.
Oh, yeah, right.
Which we've now stopped doing, right?
Right, well, we now do terminated evaluation.
Right.
I don't like this so much, because I think that this is, let's see, let me argue this again. Let me argue against myself for a second. The point is that, like echo, monitor will evaporate if it did its job, correct?
Correct.
So the argument is, if it didn't do its job, you might as well feed a failure object in because it's blown up anyway. I mean, even if what you returned was monitor of table, you'd still have something that your outer code was going to choke on. Am I making sense? Did you understand what I said?
Yes. Right. I mean, basically, this is the case where you gave something where the thing you gave it can't actually evaluate. So, we could try to return that unevaluated thing, but again, we'd have to solve the timestamp problem, or we could just return a failure object saying, well, you did something we don't know.
I think that's the right thing to do. I think this is ridiculously wordy. I think we should just say, I mean, do we know it's just unmonitorable, or do we know that it's a
well, we know
okay, why don't we say monitored? Look, why don't we say monitored evaluation failed for blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
See the word? I think that would be monitored evaluation failed for blah. I don't really like that tag. Why do we need that tag? Do we have to have that tag? Can we have a custom failure object, or do we not want to do that?
No, we can. We can put whatever we want there.
Right. But all failure objects have a tag, right?
Okay, but do they display it? Do they always display it like this?
Yeah.
I think so. That's kind of like the message name, basically.
Okay. Well,
so sometimes they're more.
What does in
like,
mean?
they're
what
like,
does in mean?
Yeah, invalid. I mean, this is prototype stuff.
Hopeless.
I'm looking. The interpreter says interpretation failure. I could like camel case. I could say monitor failure.
Where? Up here.
As a tag. If you look at the page for failure, the first example you see is interpreter and is interpretation failure.
But so interpreter, I'm sorry. For interpreter, you said?
Normally the tags are more camel cased. I didn't notice this, or I would have commented on it. But yeah, if you
you see
failure. I see.
Interpretation failure. I could say monitoring failure.
right, right. It can, for an interpreter, it can be like interpretation failure, restriction failure.
Then why don't we
so
do
on.
this? Why don't we just say message and then just give, see, I'm worried that these expressions are going to be long and things like that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So we could just say message and then table blah, 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 tag monitor failure.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
sense.
do we have to give the function name here? Because interpreter isn't giving the function name there.
No, we don't. I typically add the function name when I produce custom failures for like,
Okay. So let's not do it here.
Tracking it. But
Let's
if
not
you
do
say
it.
monitor failure, it's clear.
Right. Right. I mean, the only other thing we could do is if we had both the function and then we could have the expression wrapped in hold as another thing, and then it would be beneath the plus sign. Right. He added exactly one thing beyond the tag, which is why it's showing all three. If he added two or more things, then there would be, right, it would only show the message and the tag, and everything else would be hidden behind.
So I assume that this gets shortened if this thing is mega long, right?
There
if it shows here.
There are ways to shorten it, yes.
We can shallow it, yes.
I reckon we should just put the expression here and then say tag monitor failure. And that's
so the message is just the expression, no text?
That's what I'm saying. Just like enter a valid number is not a message that you see what I'm saying? That's just the message is just the expression.
Okay.
I don't understand that at all. I mean, right.
Well,
and enter a valid number is right. That has, it's telling you something about the input, but it's not the input.
All right. Okay. Listen, we could say evaluation failed for. See what I'm saying? Because that's what really happened, right? Mm-hmm. Evaluation failed for, and then monitor failure. Oh. Okay. Just put this in place. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is wonderful. Let's look at which functions it covers so far.
And we know
cool.
that there are a few more that we can easily add.
I forgot about CoMap, but yeah, there's.
Wow. We got to do better than this.
Well, right. I mean, normally, right, map itself is not the slow thing. It's the evaluation after the map that's slow, right? Because map just inserts the function in the, so, if you have a quickly evaluating function, then, adding all these extra evaluations to create pretty boxes.
Okay, I got a question. Map presumably knows how big the thing it's mapping over is, correct?
Not really.
Well, yes, it does. By the time map is running, it knows this thing is a length 2 million list.
Well, in the case where it's well, if it's doing a flat list, sure. In the case where it's a flat list, sure. But if you're mapping, if
over
you're
a complicated expression at level infinity, then it doesn't know, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
In the flat list case, let me make a comment. You're wrapping things around those elements to, record monitors, right? That's how you're doing it, presumably. You're sewing something or something like that from different elements to say update the monitor, correct?
Yeah, I'm just injecting an expression that grows at every step.
Well, I understand, but so what I'm going to suggest is this. If you see you've got a list of length 2 million, don't spray it at every point. You don't need to. Nobody cares about whether it's the 100,000, 200, whatever it is. You get what I'm saying?
No, but I'm not sure that this will help, because the thing is, the auto compilation will still be broken because I have to put I don't know if the auto compilation can it deal with an if, for example.
Well,
I mean, I have to do some experiments. I have to do some experiments.
Let's find out. Ask the people
right.
involved in auto compilation, right? Because
Okay.
what I'm suggesting is, if in fact the evaluation of the monitor thrower is slow, by the time you've got 2 million elements in the list you're mapping over, you don't need to put, you don't need to wrap the monitor thrower around every element, right? You don't need
exactly. You don't need that level of granularity. If you're mapping over 2 million elements, ideally the function is going to be quite fast.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in particular, I think 1%, if you know completion levels to 1%, you're in good shape. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that means that if you do that, if you spray like that, you do not want to report element 100 out of 2 million, element 200 out of 2 million. You want to report 1%, 2%, whatever. So nobody can look, because if it turned out one of those elements was a killer, you see what I'm saying? We're not going to know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
So if it says 3% and it freezes at 3%, you have some idea what happened, but you don't want to fake it and freeze at 200 or so, 300 or whatever it is. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I have to check, because I'm not actually using map to do this. I'm using map index set, because map index set tracks the
all right, okay. You've got
position. So I hope that map index set has the same level of optimization as map. Maybe
you know what? You got to go check that. You got to go work
Yep.
with people who are involved in that, Tom or whoever it is, and make sure it works. But let's get this one argument monitor into the system, because I think it's super useful.
Okay.
Okay. So one consideration. I refactored the code recently to basically have a helper and implement the addition of every function using this helper. Can I put that helper
are you
in the
asking
function
me an
repository?
implementation detail?
No. Wait a second. Let me finish. So this helper basically allows you to add more functions that will basically work with a one argument monitor.
That's
Can
cool.
I release that to the function repository?
Yes.
Okay.
Good idea.
This way you can extend the framework as you please.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should do. I don't think anybody should need to use it, but
right. Well, obviously, internal people will just do it directly with the low-level stuff that.
Yeah,
of course. I think this is useful, and it's certainly useful for experimenting.
And also users might want to teach
I like
monitor
that.
about
That's a really good point.
functions.
That's a really good point. Yes. Now, the tight wrapping business. One day, we should not need that. One day, what should happen is you say monitor for the whole thing, and then it should sort of flash up monitoring this, monitoring that, monitoring the other thing. You see what I'm saying?
So you'd get a sequence of...
Yes.
And I mean a sequence in time of panels for each expression to be monitored?
Yes.
Okay. This is a nested problem in general. Yeah, I could have a table inside a nest, and this would fire two monitoring things at the same time.
This is wrong. Where the hell did you get those words from? Where's the word iterating coming from?
Wait a second. Can you evaluate? I thought I fixed most of those. Now it should. Can you do with map? I had custom words, but now I think I replaced them with just monitoring this or that. What is map saying? The other example.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The input directly below. He's asking you to evaluate the input directly below.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That's not what it said. It didn't say map space paren pause.
Okay, let's decide on something.
Yeah, I know. I think it should just say evaluating and then brackets map of this comma dot dot dot. Probably. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do I need to write it out?
Right. And
No, I
obviously,
mean, yeah.
and obviously the function will need to be shortened in case somebody decides to write a 5-paragraph pure function in the first argument.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Dot, dot, dot there. And then I would say, this is wrong. That's not right. That doesn't make sense. Processing 8. What do we do for other cases? Because it's not processing 8 of 20 elements, because that suggests it's doing all of those. It's done 8. It's got more to go, right? Or it's doing the 8th one.
No, it says processing 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 20.
No. I understand, but it should say processing element 8 of 20, if that's what it means.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, yeah.
See, processing 8 of 20
it
means it's doing 8 altogether out of 20, which is wrong.
That's you're dealing with a non-native English speaker. Be kind.
Sorry. Julio is so good in his English that I figure he knows it perfectly.
Thank you, Stephen. No, but no. Rereading this, it makes sense. Yeah, it should be processing element 8 out of 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wasn't reading these carefully enough because I was so wowed by the panels themselves, I forgot to actually read the text carefully. So I'll take some ownership too.
Okay. All right. Okay.
This, by the way, this looks at the whole expression. Yeah. So if you have like a nested, like a random real 3, 4, 5, 6, and you map it at the final level, it will tell you the product of all those dimensions.
Fine.
I assume that's fine, yeah, because it's
Yes,
counting the exact amount of, and depends on it takes into account the level. So if you map at every level, is the sum of all the products at every level.
Look,
so, yeah,
this thing is so wonderful that the fact that it isn't perfect yet is okay. I mean, I think we just have to start using it, but make sure the speed problem is solved. And I do think going to something that isn't tight wrapping in the end is important.
Okay, then I have a question for that I have here, like literal or dynamic scoping for the monitoring. Like, if you have table of nest literally in the monitor, we monitor both. But if you have monitor of like function, and function inside is calling other things, do we still propagate it or no?
I understand. You're asking, is it dynamic or lexical?
Exactly. Modular block.
I think block would be the best case, I think.
Okay, then I have to study.
Well, I mean, we could start off with the first one. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to feel like. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like what we want is, you say, I've got this operation. The one issue there is, let's say you monitor something and it goes into internal code of ours and it's monitoring some totally random weird thing inside, and it's incomprehensible to people, right? Because it says, evaluating fold pair list of whatever, and it's like, I don't have a fold pair list. What the heck is it talking about?
I could respect reprotected.
Yes, you should, but I mean, I think you should anyway. But I think that may not be enough, and I think it may be less confusing to do it lexically.
Okay, it's also easier. So I'll start with the lexical implementation.
Why don't
then
you
we can
start with that?
Take a look and see if we like it or not. Maybe we don't like it. Maybe we do. Let's see.
Okay. All right.
That's everything in this section. So, and
Okay.
Roger is here, so we can talk about dynamic.
Okay. All right. You're staying in this form of audio? That's fine.
Yes.
All right. Let's tackle binomial. You know, I'm
right.
what is that chap named Moriarty or something? Who was the person with the treatise on the binomial theorem? Professor Moriarty, is that right? In the Sherlock Holmes books.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Well,
Right.
we've been sent many treatises on the binomial theorem here. So
Right. So basically, so if you want the history of sort of why things changed, then
well, let's just talk about what the main issue is. The main issue is binomials of negative numbers, negative integers, changed at some point, and we've got users who are up in arms about it.
right.
Yes. Yes.
Why did it change?
That's,
Was it
I can
just a
tell you that.
mistake, or is it?
No, not really.
Well,
But
it's sort. Well, I think it was a wrong decision, but I don't
agree.
think it was just a simple mistake.
If it was a wrong decision, we
so-
should just fix it.
yeah, it was a wrong decision. But well,
So, can Stephen?
Yeah,
I actually put some thought. So can I actually
Yes, please.
tell
Speech.
you what the issues are?
Speech. Yes.
So, right. So basically, this started with, binomial of NN auto-evaluates to 1, which is sort of, combinatorics, or if you just look at the natural definition over the complexes, it's 1 everywhere except where we have poles, i.e. negative integers.
Yes.
And so we used to give 0, which was probably the correct decision, but
0 for what? So I'm sorry, for what?
For binomial of minus k minus n, where n is a positive integer. So binomial of -1 would give 0. Binomial of -2 would give 0, etc.
And then we tried to do some analytic continuation, and that was a stupid idea.
No.
Okay.
That is not what happened. So so then Bill Gosper complained, well, binomial of NN is 1, but binomial of -1 is 0, so you're inconsistent. And I think what he was saying was that, binomial of n comma n shouldn't auto-evaluate. And, Sasha, I think Sasha did try this. It broke all sorts of things. And so Sasha came up with this symmetric definition, which, preserves that identity there sort of in the middle of the screen.
Which identity? This identity here?
No. So if you scroll down to the full simplify, then that identity is preserved everywhere in the complex plane.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing a full simplify. Which full simplify?
Like after the third bullet point in that section.
It's in traditional form.
Yeah. So
next.
The next
one.
Oh,
there. I see.
So that identity is preserved everywhere in the complex plane, which means we can auto-evaluate and
yeah, but does that give the correct answer for binomial of -1 -1?
So
you could argue what the correct answer is.
Okay, well,
right.
So really,
we made up some way of avoiding the problem of having binomial of n evaluate. So this is again the standard problem of generic versus, if I say n divided by n, we say it's 1. Even though
exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which is sort of my position. It's like, the binomial, this inconsistency is like saying, well, x over x shouldn't auto-evaluate to 1. Well, and that does cause the occasional problem, but you gain so much from that the people who need to worry about that case just need to be made to worry about that case.
Yep.
And so, right. And basically Don Knuth's biggest complaint, which I think is correct, is if you scroll down to the asymmetric definition, then, defining it to be 1 instead of 0, which, is consistent with various other ways of looking at the problem, but it violates the Pascal identity. That's the second equation in the asymmetric question, right? that if you plug in n equals 0 and k equals 0 into Pascal's identity, then you get that binomial of -1 -1
so
0.
Isn't the obvious suggestion binomial of n is 1, but binomial of specific integer -1 -1 is 0?
Yes.
Correct, and that's basically was at the end of the treatise. That was going to be my and Devendra's recommendation. Possibly we preserve a system option for Bill Gosper so that he can turn off the auto evaluation and be happy. So the way it's currently implemented in the prototype build, all that auto evaluation is turned off. So when we turn it back on, we can leave a system option for, Bill Gosper to turn on if he really cares. But basically, we think the most useful thing is we want the generic evaluation, but specific guys give the thing that preserves. I will point out that what Sasha did does preserve Pascal's identity everywhere except 0, 0. So it's not like he did something completely crazy.
No.
But it does obviously rankle certain people, and given
seems
that,
unnecessary.
Yes.
It seems useful that Pascal's triangle, if you continue Pascal's triangle outside of the region where the triangle is, the coordinates of the triangle, that it gives 0, which is what this would do, right?
It gives 0 to the top left. It does not give 0 to the top right, which is what you want if you want. I actually have that in my little section about a note on Pascal's triangle. So what Sasha's definition did is give an alternating binomial theorem to the top left, whereas the old definition gives zeros to the top left, but the top right continues to extend, which is what you want for binomial series. I think that Don is overstating the case a little bit. I mean, I agree that it's wrong, but he's overstating the case a bit about how wrong it is, because what people really care about is the top right, where you go to binomial series, and very few people care about the top left, where nobody really does anything. But
does anybody know whether did Don's books assume this? Do we know? Has he made this assumption for 50 years or something of what happens for negative binomials? And if so, why did he make that assumption? Anybody know?
I believe.
Or has it never shown up in his books?
I think we could look in concrete mathematics.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the most likely place.
The textbook.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, really, the primary definition only defines it for the triangle, so to speak.
Yeah. I know everything else, but I don't know what kind of combinatorial identities are nicely. This is what I'm a little bit concerned about, that we should just check that, the 0 definition sort of, if it beautifully sort of aligns with combinatorial definitions, great. If it's like, oh, well, whoops, whatever, it's a little bit more questionable. But I agree. Look, Sasha's custom definition does not seem like something, it doesn't seem like the right idea. I mean, he was trying to extend it, had a clever solution for extending it.
Right. He was trying to find perfect consistency between generic evaluation and numerical evaluation,
which I don't think is going to work. I mean, here's a question that I have. How many other cases do we have where a generic simplification is violated by specific cases? Do we have any idea in the special function, or in the discrete math domain, how many other situations we have like that?
We don't know,
By
but
the way,
here's an example of something. So when we did the discrete calculus project, one reason to do that was that Victor returned these hypergeometrics that were completely undefined at the integer points where you actually wanted to evaluate it. They all blew up. I mean, they typically blew up. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't generically wrong.
It was just wrong at every point you cared about.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
That's funny.
That is kind of funny.
Okay, well, how many more of those? I mean, so that's a gamma function type thing.
And yes, he is assuming this in Right. He says explicitly that symmetry fails for negative integers, and we want zeros on pages 156 and 157 of concrete mathematics.
So there is a certain argument that we should have a function, symmetric binomial, that does the symmetric definition.
So one of the ideas, I don't know, I think I presented it last time, or we talked about it, is to have like a Knuth binomial.
Well, wait a minute. That's the case that's the generic case. The case that Don doesn't want is the symmetric binomial, right?
Right. But since we don't have that now, right? So we want to reintroduce the Knuth binomial.
No, we don't want to do that. Want to do that. We want to change our generic binomial.
Yes.
But I think in the general principle that things are named after people they shouldn't be named after, maybe we should name the definition that Don says is wrong after him.
But see, Knuth also has an opinion. So Knuth changed the sign of, I think, Stirling S1. Because he has a different combinatorial definition.
Yes.
Whereas the Stirling numbers are, these alternating, and he has a different definition.
Which we don't have. Is that correct?
Which we don't have.
Okay, well, maybe it's the Knuth Stirling, but that's a battle for another day.
Okay.
I think symmetric binomial makes sense.
As a system level function.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit pedantic, but I think it's useful.
Okay.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, but so we are we just need a plan for 14.1.
The plan for 14.1 is we're changing binomial.
Yes, exactly. Once we agree on that, the symmetric binomial is definitely a good idea. Yes.
Okay, fine.
So there's a bunch of stuff, cleanup work for us to do, because our discrete calculus stuff will return. It relies on this definition.
Well, if we don't touch the generic case, then we are fine. If we touch the generic case, yes, there'll be a lot of breakage. So question is, do we
We're not touching. I told you, binomial of n comma n returns 1.
Great. Then we are fine.
That's it. But binomial of -1, like x over x, doesn't do the same thing as the generic case.
Perfect. That's all I want. Yeah.
Okay. But then symmetric binomial is the thing that correctly, that has the definition where it will return. What is it returning for the negative integers? It would return
1 rather than 0.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And let me just check one other thing. Q binomial, I think, is consistent with the new definition of binomial. Is that correct? When Q binomial degenerates to binomial, it's now agreeing with binomial, which it wasn't before.
That is correct.
I didn't even think of that. I should have thought of that. Yeah, that's important.
Right.
That is something Ian and I checked. So
okay, good.
So what about things like Pockhammer and so on? I don't know what other things there are in the constellation around binomial and whether they're consistent.
Well, there's factorial power and Pockhammer.
Right. Well, we should just check whether those in some generic case, should they simplify to binomial or symmetric binomial? I don't know. Or maybe they don't simplify to binomial.
They don't auto-simplify. I mean, maybe we can think about function expand rules.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, we should check that.
Auto-evaluate.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Let's make this change. I mean, that was. We should have done this a bit earlier. I mean, I thanks to our vocal users for having vociferously complained, because
so apparently ChatGPT told Knuth that binomial is not defined outside of the triangle, which I think is sort of correct.
Who knows?
Yeah.
ChatGPT is
and it all right, and it also said that Mathematica gives 0, which used to be true, but was it and will be true again, but wasn't at the time that ChatGPT made the assertion.
Well, okay, but that's if you what was it? It was I mean, these people who quote things to me where it's saying ChatGPT says X, Y, Z, like this is true. It's just
yeah. No.
I mean, but people do that seriously.
I know.
That's the shocking thing.
Yes.
It's
Well, you did hear the case about those lawyers who submitted.
I did.
I
did. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So are we done with this item?
Yep.
Okay. Good stuff.
Okay.
Send out a message when it's handled. Okay, let's try and quickly get through the other items in this agenda. People who were here only for binomial can drop, as I believe. Whatever happened to Professor Moriarty in the end?
I don't
Nobody
know.
knows.
I mean, right? He pushed Holmes off the cliff, but then
Yeah.
Holmes magically came back at some later point, and I don't know whatever happened to Moriarty after that point.
Okay. Does anybody know if there's any particular content assigned to his treatise on the binomial theorem? It would be interesting if he had a discussion of negative binomials. Anyway, no matter.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, Seal. Okay, let's come to this. Letter counts.
Right. You sent an email saying, why doesn't this work? And I pointed out, well, I can think of at least two obvious definitions for what this works means. And so I'm not entirely convinced we should adopt either one, but if we do, we should adopt
Okay,
one.
so the issue is letter counts not of a single string, but of a list of strings.
Correct.
What did I think it should do? Or did I not even say?
You just had a screenshot of it not working and the subject line, why doesn't this work? And I was like, well, which of these do you mean? And you didn't reply.
Yeah.
and
I
so,
admit that it's not obvious and that the translation between these is messy.
Yes.
Because I don't think I can just take this. If I say here, apply plus to this, it's going to fail. Right? How do I do that, in fact? Is there a way to do that where it makes an assumption of 0 for the things that don't correspond? We should have that. It's a useful function.
I think you might need to use query or something with, join.
Something like that.
I'm sorry?
Merge might do something like that, but it's not like simple usage.
This seems useful to me.
Okay, well, we can think about
it's
that.
kind of like an association apply. Right? It's probably going to be plus is probably going to be the most common thing there, but it's an association apply where probably by default this thing, that function of no arguments, maybe that's silly, is the default case. Because the thing being omitted, if the function isn't flat, all bets are off. But if the function is flat,
right, and certainly if it's one identity, then there's some default value, right? For times it would be 1, etc.
Exactly, right.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're trying to do, but if you do a merge of that list of association and the second argument is plus, does that work?
Oh, let's find out.
And I might be misunderstanding what you want to do.
No, I want to add this up assuming 0 for the no, that didn't work. I want to do this where maybe there's an additional plus argument.
You want total, not plus.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because it'll feed it as a list, all the elements as a list.
Well, that's reasonable. What that did.
That's reasonable.
I think that's reasonable. Let's put it as an example in the letter counts documentation and be done with it for the time being.
Okay.
And make sure that
Sorry.
I mean, see whether we can make sure that the keywords for merge say things like adding associations and things.
There's
making sense.
That is nice. That would work.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Operator of that. So you can do merge of total and apply that to the list of associations, which I think looks even nicer.
That's beautiful. I mean, if it works, let's take a look. Magnificent. Couldn't be better. Right. fine. Document and move on.
All right, I'm going to suggest we
So-
postpone
so
this. to a
wait,
future
did
time
you
because
want-
This is a naming discussion, so it won't be.
Well, let's
brief.
just see if it's okay. What was somebody said? Do you want ...
Did you want letter counts of a list of strings to give a list of associations? Did we actually answer that?
I think that would be desirable.
Is that
mildly.
consistent? Is that what character counts currently does? So one of these functions, it's not documented, but it actually does this, at least for
Does
flat.
this?
Yeah. So we could make, it's not documented, but apparently it does this. So we could make word counts and letter counts consistent with this behavior and then actually document it.
Seems reasonable to me. Make them essentially listable.
Okay.
And should they be truly listable, like arbitrarily nested, or?
I don't see why we don't just make them listable.
Yep.
Are they, if there's,
Or they may have
yeah.
multiple arguments and things, but they should be listable on their first argument, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. This is a function we've discussed before, and we didn't come up with a name, and so.
Well, let's just give it 1 second here to come up with a name, and you know, sometimes there's brilliant strikes quickly, and sometimes it's okay. So.
Right. So this is the thing that basically is a head wrapper to feed the arguments unevaluated.
I mean, I think that makes more sense than held arguments. Arguments held is a kind of a passive thing, like,
Well, yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, I agree that held is better than hold, but I personally would prefer held arguments of.
I don't think that's the right thing. I think it's passive voice. It's like you know, reversed of something, right? I mean, it's like reverse applied. That would be a you know, reverse applied fyx. Right. So this is.
I see. Right, but there the thing, yeah, right. Held applied would work.
Or applied held.
Right, but the thing that the active thing comes first in the reverse applied, right? So it should be held applied because that's the.
I see. Held applied is not the worst thing in the world. Because it goes along with reverse applied.
Okay. I'm certainly, I mean, like I said, this is not quite ready to be evaluated because we're
And especially not because it holds its arguments when it evaluates. Anyway, never mind. Evaluated in multiple senses.
Yes. But yes, well, I'm certainly okay with held applied as a name until, you know, we review it for real, and then you'll
to hold
have
a space for the function. But okay.
Yes.
We're punning too badly today.
Yes.
Seems good to me. All
All
right. Did we get through the agenda?
We did get through the agenda, very surprisingly.
Excellent. Good work, everybody.
And then
yeah?
just about an hour. So
yeah, right.
Good timing.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.